Hey guys, so I have been struggling the first few weeks of this year. I've had so many questions spinning around in my head, big questions too, that are like, how do I want to show up on social media platforms? What does it mean to be authentic? Am I really being authentic? How could I be more real in presenting myself to the world? I've been experiencing a lot of mental pushback as well. It's been seemingly impossible to get into a really good flow these last few weeks with traveling back from the US, starting up the new year at my corporate job, signing on new coachees, going back into the spin and yoga studio, getting back into the swing of things with creating content, finding space for myself, investing time in connecting with friends and loved ones I haven't seen for the last 4 weeks. I feel like my to-do list just keeps getting longer and longer and longer. And the combination of these two pieces, the asking myself the big existential questions that require a lot of space and thinking capacity, combined with the lack of space and time to really actually think about them, well, this is lethal to my creative process. So this week, I'm tricking myself into creation. I'm going to be exploring that internal battle that I'm facing, and I know a lot of others are facing, when I look up at the mountain of the creative work that I want to do, but feel like I have two rocks strapped to my feet and I'm not able to make the first step. I'm going to be discussing something that anyone and everyone who has ever done anything remotely creative knows really well, and that is resistance. So we're back to the video version of this post. But I would also like to hear from you so that I'm sure that I'm offering the content in the way that you guys like to consume it. So if you'd be so kind, on the digital version of my Substack, there is a poll there where I'm polling you guys to find out whether or not you listen and watch the content, whether or not you just listen to the content, or whether or not you read it in full. So please, before you do anything, please go and fill out that poll so that I know how best to use my time. And also really important, I do still have one-on-one coaching slots available for this quarter. They're filling up really fast though. So if you've been feeling lost or uncertain of your next step, or if you've been feeling a lot of resistance, or you finally feel like you're ready to tackle some of those goals, or honestly, if you're just curious as to about how coaching might be able to support you and help you, feel free to reach out to me directly or connect with me on Instagram or LinkedIn. As always, I deeply appreciate you taking the time to read it, to watch, to listen, to comment, to share with your friends. Feedback is always, always, always welcome. And I love little notes too. But until then, I just simply hope you enjoy this piece. So I think I read on average, it takes until January 17th for people to fall away from their New Year's resolutions. 17 days is all it takes? Really? But then again, if I'm being honest, it's January 22nd and I have been sitting in front of my computer for the past 4 days straight trying to figure out what I want to write about for this week's Substack. And you know what? I've come up completely blank. Actually, not only am I completely blank, but I'm playing the mental busyness gymnastics and trying to prioritize literally anything other than just sitting down and writing. The resistance right now is just so real. It's such a shift from last year when I started this newsletter. I was so excited to get back to writing again. I was accelerating forward in typical Kelsey fashion, where I love to start new projects and have a hard time sticking with them and showing up consistently. And yet here we are. I've started about 3 different newsletter topics. I'm constantly finding myself looking around my apartment to see all the things I could be cleaning, or making another useless list of small administrative tasks that I could be completing just to try to get a little bit of momentum for myself and to trick my brain into doing some of the harder things that I don't want to do. Is it working? Honestly, not really. I keep staring then at the real to-do list, the one that involves writing, the one that involves finally setting a damn date for my first free webinar, starting the project from my next in-person workshop, and for fuck's sakes, finally finishing my outline for my first group coaching initiative that I'm trying to launch in Q2 or Q3 on self-confidence and beauty. Yeah, I'm definitely struggling at the moment. So Stephen Pressfield, who's the author of the famed War of Art, coined the term resistance with a capital R to describe a phenomenon that happens when any of us has a dream or creative vision that we are pursuing. He says, the dream arises in our psyche, even if we deny it and even if we fail or refuse to recognize it, like a tree ascending into the sunshine. And simultaneously, the dream shadow appears, which is in this case, resistance, just as a physical tree would cast a physical shadow. So resistance's mission is to simply keep things as they are and to prevent you from growing or moving forward in your aspirations. So resistance can take the form of many different things. It can take the form of rationalizing your dreams and convincing yourself that they're too big or too bold. It can take the form of fear and anxiety, procrastination, emphasizing distractions that take our eye off of our goal, but also give us a false sense of productivity. It can also be things like increasing the voice of your inner critic. Really, the list goes on. But in essence, resistance is the natural born saboteur of any creative endeavor. So my resistance takes the form of an endless to-do list of mediocre tasks that dance around an idea instead of going in head first. She can prioritize the finances, the invoice writing, the administrative time blocking, the schedule optimization, basically everything before doing the actual work of the thing that she really wants and needs to do. She distracts herself from this discomfort that's part and parcel with the fear that comes with the work. She says things like, you're going to get too overwhelmed. You better stop as quickly as possible. And no one's going to like what you create, so why do it in the first place? Yeah, I mean, my resistance can be a bit of a mean bitch sometimes. But when I know she comes with a dream and that she'll never go away fully, she'll just get quieter, I can then start to look at her as an ally or at least an indicator that I'm on the right track. The thing is, the more important a calling is to us, the bigger the resistance will be. And this is why I can easily sit down and do mindless invoices, but finally finishing my outline for my group coaching on self-confidence and redefining beauty, something that means so much more to me emotionally and requires me to be way more vulnerable than writing invoices, is something that I put off and I put off again and again. But what I've learned is that it's important to remember that the resistance is not you. Just as your thoughts are not you, just as your feelings are not you, and I'm gonna get a little meta here, if you are observing your thoughts and your feelings and your resistance, then you are the observer, not the thoughts and the feelings themselves. But what this means is that these thoughts and feelings that you are having, are not you, but they are actually the things that are fueling the resistance. So when it comes to managing and ultimately conquering your resistance, it requires us to manage our fear and anxiety around a dream or creative vision. It requires us to get acquainted with all of the ways in which we believe that we're unworthy or cannot trust our own capabilities or readiness and see them for what they are, which is not the objective truth. It's just the resistance. So for example, my fears and anxiety around developing my self-confidence and redefining beauty group coaching program have literally kept me paralyzed for months. I have thoughts popping in like, what if nobody signs up because they believe my idea is not valuable? What if I'm not actually able to help anyone be happier and more self-confident and they believe it was a waste of time and their money? What if I'm not able to be the person for others that I wish I'd have had on my journey to actually believing that I'm beautiful? What if everyone realizes collectively that I have no place offering something so impactful and meaningful, and why would they ever listen to somebody like me? I mean, it's insane when I speak out these fears, but each and every one of them is really things that I feel. My resistance shows up as this self-critic who says, this is not good enough, this is not impactful enough, and you, Kelsey, are not good enough. So then I procrastinate to avoid that shit-talking inner critic. Resistance comes down to fear and the exposed raw feeling of vulnerability we feel when we bring something out into the world that is an extension of our hearts. If we can practice managing that fear, well, then we'll be able to conquer resistance. So how do we manage and face our fears? Well, I wrote a whole Substack on making friends with fear and pain as a part of the transformation process. So I highly recommend you go and check that one out. But when we think about overcoming the resistance to our creative vision, we need to create a daily practice of walking towards fear instead of running away. An amazing friend of mine, shout out Akash, loves to ask himself the following questions in relation to his fear. And I think that they're so perfect for this situation. The first one is, what am I afraid of? And what is something I can do that will take me towards my fear instead of away? These are incredible starting points to train our brain to A, put a finger on what exactly is fueling our resistance, and B, to break down the task into more manageable chunks so that we teach our mind not to shy away from resistance, but to go towards it. So when we consider all that is holding ourselves back from doing something we want to do, it's important to create a daily habit and practice of going towards fear instead of away. It requires a level of self-awareness of your own tricks you play on yourself to avoid that creative endeavor, and an ability to look underneath the surface to identify what exactly you're afraid of, and then brainstorm what are some of the smaller steps you can take to go towards that fear. So I like to think of it sort of in the following stages, right? The first one is really noticing your resistance and how it shows up in your daily life. Do you procrastinate? Do you create busy work? Is it in the form of an inner critic? Then it's really looking at and assuring yourself that resistance is a sign that you're on the right track. And the bigger the resistance is, the more you should walk towards it. The third one is learning how to separate you from your resistance. Those self-loathing thoughts like you stink, you're worthless, you're a loser, or your idea is great, but you'll never pull it off. That's not us saying that. That's the resistance. The fourth one is really then exploring what exactly you're afraid of and noticing how that fear is fueling your resistance. And then asking yourself, what is something small you can do right now that goes towards that fear, that goes towards that resistance instead of away? And then taking that small action and doing something small every day towards that to continue to build resilience. It's also important outside of any specific creative endeavor that you create a healthy habit around regularly seeking out situations or activities where you feel resistance to doing them. This is everything from going to the gym, talking to strangers, doing cold plunges, because this will help you when you face something really important that you want to do, but you have fear holding you back. So Stephen Pressfield said that most of us have two lives, the lives we live and the unlived life within us. And between the two stands resistance. He explores this idea of the unlived life, the version of ourselves that hasn't manifested because of our resistance. We all create these goals or ambitions to become things like more physically fit, to become social, to start that business, to do that training course, and yet many of our dreams never actually get to see the light of day. This is the cost of succumbing to resistance. We will never know who we could have been had we recognized and worked towards resistance instead of away. So even though it was uncomfortable and there were moments that I wanted to just shut my computer and throw it out the window, this post is now a win for me in my fight against my own resistance. And funnily enough, it's actually helped me feel some of the other things that I've been procrastinating. And it's helped me be much more conscious of where I'm trying to busy myself and where I'm avoiding the real shit that I actually want and need to do. So for now, I have a real to-do list to do, and I'm probably betting so do you.